All right. Welcome to our Skibbe Wiffball League Snow Day podcast.
Snow Day.
Today is Monday, February 15th, and in St. Louis, Missouri, we are expecting somewhere between 6 and 9 inches of snow. So the city has shut down, but they cannot shut down our voices. So with me today, I have Mr. Sam Skibbe, who is the commissioner of the Skibbe Wiffball League, and he's basically in charge of everything wiffle ball that anyone cares about. So
except for this podcast, you decided you wanted to host a podcast, and this might be one of the very few podcasts that hasn't been hosted by me in our league, Spencer. So this is going to be an honor to be a guest on your show.
Well, thank you. This has been a long running show. This is, actually, it's been a long time coming. So, I just really appreciate having the wisest man in wiffle join me on this white, snowy day.
Yes, President's Day, all about the white hair.
That's right. Well, anyways, on this podcast, we are going to be talking about the Skibbe Wiffball League in particular. And what we have done is Sam and I have taken every team in the league. We have split up the teams. Basically, I took all the teams from the division that Sam was in last year, and Sam took all the teams from the division that I was in last year, and then we split one of the teams that did not exist last year, the Athletics. So what we did is we decided what is the most important number for each one of these teams going into season 19, and then also we each picked a player from each one of those teams and thought about what's the most important number for that player as well. So to get things started, we're going to start with the Athletics. And what I did was I chose the most important number for the Athletics, and Sam has a player that he's going to talk about who is important to this team. And he actually, it's the other way around. I took the player and Sam took the Athletics. So
yeah,
Sam,
I was going to say, if I had to pick a player, I was going to do one on the spot. It would have been probably a more entertaining podcast for sure. But no, I also want to thank our sponsor for today, Spencer, for your podcast. I know you reached out. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Nolan Arenado from the St. Louis Cardinals. Thank you so much, Nolan. I must have caught his eye, that graphic that Kevin Poley made, and he reached out to us and really wanted us to do this podcast. Maybe he even comes up when we talk about the Rockies. He might be one of those players to watch. So
never
to
know.
Speak. Yeah, never know. But anyway, again, thanks for having me, Spencer. And let's start today with the Athletics. And I was in charge of finding a number for the team. And for the Athletics, my number for the team is 3.5, Spencer, 3.5. And the reason being, right now, the Athletics have 2.5 players on their team, and that half player isn't even guaranteed. We all know, we're both members of the front office, and the Athletics are going to be struggling for players this year with the news that Memorial Day is our weekend tournament. Right now, the only players that can attend on Memorial Day are Steve Hayes and Paul Castellano, same players that played on the Braves last year, half of the Braves. And then their half player is Alex Heck, who is looking to take a couple days off of work to come in and be here for half of the time. My number is 3.5 because that's how many players I think they need to field a solid team and not be in the basement this year. I think that they can reach that number. There have been some great athletic players of the past. Chris Costello was a rookie of the year. And I know he's kind of wishy-washy and, committing to something department when it comes to wiffle ball. But I think he could be maybe that half player for them, fill in when Alex can't be there, things like fill in when he can. Matt Gallicados is a pitcher I think they truly do need. And then I think they're going to have to branch out and find somebody that has maybe played in the league before. I know Matt Peisert is looking for a team, and Handsome Matt has been a great player for the SWBL. And then there's also some intriguing rookies, some out-of-towners like Dylan Harshaw and Tommy Loftus, Caleb Yonkman, players that might need a spot somewhere, and you could always branch out and go national if you wanted to. So 3.5 is my number for the A's.
Yeah, didn't really think of that. But yeah, you need to field a team in order to play. That is the most important number.
Yep.
That is the most important number for that team. But, when I think of the Athletics, they've had, like you said, a good history being in this league. They've had tons of different players. But some of the constants that you think about, that are still on the team. Obviously, I think Paul Castellano comes to mind. And for me, when I think of what's the most important thing for the Athletics and what's the most important thing for Paul, my number that I chose for Paul is number 25. I think Paul has to be the workhorse pitcher for this team. Now, last year, he didn't really pitch. I don't think he pitched a single inning last year for the Braves. Right. The year before that, he pitched 17 innings. I don't think he's ever pitched 25 innings. But in order for this team to try to make a little noise, they have to have a pitcher. They have to have someone that's going to eat up innings. And for me, that's got to be Paul, just thinking about things. Unless they add someone that we don't know about yet, that number could change. But for me, it's Paul. Yeah. It's 25 innings pitched.
Yeah, even if Matt Gallicados comes back, who was a 30-inning pitcher for them before, somebody's still got to pitch 20. So, having a number that's lower than 20 isn't going to cut it for sure. Paul still, fun fact, does hold the record for most pitches thrown in a season, 733 pitches.
Oh, I was going to say 63, 763.
Sorry.
I was barely off. All right. Well, let's move into the next team. This is a team that I am in charge of picking number 4, and that is the Astros. They are the next team up on our list. And the number that I chose for the Astros was the number 5. The Astros have never won more than 4 games. So they've got to win 5 games. Like, if they want to sniff the playoffs, they were close last year. They have got to win 5 games. So whatever they have to do, they got to get to 5. I don't think we've ever had a team make the playoffs with a sub 500 win-loss. Is that correct?
Not in the franchise era, no.
Back in the franchise era.
Actually, your team is the only team to win a championship, and you guys went 4-6 with Blake and Paul, right? The 3
that was back in the day. Yeah, that was a totally different time. Yes. Yeah. So, anyways, 5 wins. They got to get to 5 wins. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that is a super important number for them, and I also think 5 is a good number because 5 is how many, key players right now I think they have on their team, 5, 6, maybe even 7. And those 5 key players, though, you got to kind of find that playing time for them too. So 5 is a good number for that as well. What's going to be the right lineup for Brian to put together to have success to get to that 5 wins? Because you're right, it needs to be at least 500, hopefully above. But I think the Astros are putting together the squad that could possibly do it and make a run.
Yeah, and then moving on to the player on the Astros, I think this is probably their X factor this year. It's the newest addition. It's John Callaway.
Yep.
John Callaway, my number for him is
tell the people, Spencer, before you tell the number, what happened, because some people listening to this podcast might not know.
John Callaway decided to sign with the Astros this offseason. He left the Yankees, in which he'd played for the last
since 2009
season. Yeah, it's been a very long time.
Yeah.
So this was a huge move in the landscape of our league. It's not very often you see a high caliber player like John decide to change teams. So this is it's a big loss for the Yankees and it's a huge gain for the Astros.
Yeah.
John Callaway will be the best player on the Astros. He has to be the best player on the Astros. And this will be his first taste of being the guy. He's played with people like Scott Poley and Jackson Crosley and Sam Bakula, who have all in their own rights had really great seasons. But this is the first time John's going to have the pressure of having to carry an offense. And that's why, for me, John's most important number is the number 50. The number 50 was chosen because this league has never had an MVP in which that player has hit less than 50 times. Okay. The Astros have never had a player hit more than 50 times. Wow. John Callaway's hit more than 50 times many times. Every MVP that's ever won has had at least 50 at-bats. What that means is they're on a good team that hits. They don't get easy outs. That player's putting the ball in play, and they're getting as many at-bats as they can. So the reason why that's important is the Astros have to have an MVP-type player. Now, does John need to win the MVP for this team to be successful? No. But he needs to hit a lot. He's going to be their best hitter. I don't know where he's playing the field. He's going to be one of their best fielders. Yeah. So 50 is the number for me. And I think John has to hit at least 50, get at least 50 at bats for this team to go anywhere.
I think he can do that. I've heard rumblings that he'll probably lead off, obviously, from the left side of the field or left side of the batter's box. And then also he's probably going to play left field. So, a lot of left fielders are the leadoff hitters. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Astros come up with this year.
Yes, and that takes us into our next team, which, Sam, you will be telling us about, the Skibbe Wiffle Ball League Marlins franchise heading into their second season. What's the most important number for them?
You know, the Marlins, obviously, a little history behind them. They were a new franchise last year in this, the craziness of the pandemic. We needed a local team to fill in, and they ended up winning the franchise of the year, going 0-10. And they were actually second place in votes to be crowned the Dangerfield worst team in America from National Wiffle. But they didn't quite get that title. But we are excited to have the Marlins back, and they can literally only go up from here. My number for the Marlins this year is 17, Spencer. It is 17. And the reason it is 17 is because the leader in RBIs and in innings pitch for the Marlins was Luke Bacula, and he had 17 RBIs and 17 innings pitched last season. That was good for last place out of the best, players on the team. So they were the only players, they were the lowest in RBIs and innings pitched from their best player, if that makes sense. So I think that they need to improve upon that score, or at least get somebody else to that caliber so that Luke can maybe go off and have a better season as well. But they cannot be last place in those two for their team if they want to, move above the last place spot. There's going to be some teams, the Marlins are only going to get better. The Athletics are struggling to have players. The Expos and Astros have been notorious for being out of the playoffs. But now this year, the Expos, defending champions, completely different team. It's going to be tough for them to come out of the basement with the Marlins. And I think they're just going to have to work hard to get over that 17 number. What do you think about that, Spencer?
I think Luke Bacula is the X factor for the Marlins. I think when I think of the Marlins, take it one step at a time, like win a game. Every team has aspirations to win the title, but it doesn't happen overnight. Ask the Expos. It takes time. It takes time to build something. So win a game. And how do you win a game? Your best player needs to make the rest of the other players around him better. You also need a good supporting cast. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Luke Bacula is the X factor.
Yep.
So,
and that leads me right into the player, Spencer. You actually mentioned it, and Eli Erickson is our player to watch in this one. Luke Bacula, obviously, you said is an X factor, and he's going to be the best player on the team, no matter how you swing it on both sides of the ball. But Eli Erickson, in his own right, is going to be a good player in this league, very athletic, and the number for him is 1. He is the captain, finding that one lineup that's going to be successful during one game that you need to get one win, I think is going to be that important factor, like you said. And I even have it written down as well, but one season at a time, as you mentioned too, is so important. And one other stat about the number 1 with Eli is there was only one player on their team that was above single digits in RBIs. And they were the only team that only had one player that was above single digits in RBIs. Every other team has at least 2. So I think that is going to be, and he was actually tied for second. So I think Eli getting to that double digits is going to be really important for them, because they need somebody that can back up Luke on offense and drive in those runs.
Sure. Now, talking about a brand new team, let's talk about a team that's been here since day one. Let's talk about the Rockies. The Rockies, have been this team that early on and throughout their history, they've just been consistent. I think that's probably the best word. During the regular season, I don't ever remember them as ever being like the best record, but during the playoffs, they were always the best team. They're consistent. They're always there. 1 through 4 in their lineup, used to be 1 through 5. They just, had a bunch of guys that you're like, yeah, this can work, For me, the number for the Rockies is 3. Think about the Rockies, like what else could they accomplish? They've won 2 championships. They have, like all the things I've already said, they're always around. They're always a good team. You never want to play them. But the number is 3, because what else can the Rockies do? They can become the greatest franchise in the Skibbe Wiffle Ball League history. Right now, I would say that's the Rays. The Rays won 3 titles in 4 years, I believe. But I think if the Rockies could win one more championship, to me, they would become the greatest franchise in Skibbe Wiffle Ball League history. So, is it that important to them? I don't know. But for me, it's like, what else is there to do? You know? So And for me, it's like, how do you get there? Well, the person that I think is the most important player on their team is Blake. And I think people last year were expecting a lot more out of Blake once they switched to that 4-man lineup. In 5-man lineup, it's really difficult for the at-bats to go around. That's 20% less at-bats that you're going to get.
For sure.
So for me, the most important number for Blake is 20. This is just an arbitrary number I came up with, but Blake needs to hit 20 home runs. If he hits 19 or if it's 21, that's pretty much the point. But the whole idea is he needs to get back to being a dominant offensive player. This team is going to roll if he rolls. There's no other thumpers on that team. There's a lot of really good players, but if Blake doesn't hit well, this team's not going to go anywhere. Sure. So in order for them to get their third championship, Blake has to be the guy that he used to be as a hitter.
2012-2013 run, back-to-back MVPs for him. And like you said, Rockies, super successful team, have never missed the playoffs in their history. They were the 5 seed last year, so probably the closest to not making the playoffs last year as the 5 seed, but they've never even had a wild card game ever in their history until last year. I think it's going to be really good to get Grant Boyd back. They only have 3 returning players, speaking of the number 3 from last year. But you're right. Blake has to be able to get back to that 2013, 2012 mindset of being their best player. And he's a newly engaged man, so maybe that'll give him the future power he needs.
And not to take anything away from the team, but even more recently than an MVP, Blake doesn't have to be the MVP of the league for this team to win. He just needs to get top 5. He needs to be a top 5 MVP at the end of the year. That's what he needs to be.
He has the skill level to do it too still.
Absolutely.
He definitely can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that takes us into another franchise that maybe you could describe as not being as consistent as the Rockies have been over time. That brings us to talk about the Yankees. Sam, tell us about the Yankees.
Tell you what, the Yankees are looking at maybe one of the most important years in their history as a franchise. They are well known for being a team that is up and down every single year. And they showed it again this year, not making the playoffs. The Expos took a spot away from one of those, those 5 teams that have constantly been in the playoffs. The Expos took one, and the Yankees have their number right now that I have for them, and their important number to watch out for is 4. The reason I said that, there's a couple different ways I went about this, but 4 is their important number because last year they only had 4 wins. And like you said about the Astros, you can't have something underneath 500. You can't have a record underneath 500. 4 was their lowest amount of wins in team history. And that just so happened to be without John Callaway, who, as we mentioned earlier, is not coming back. So that's an interesting thing as well. Also, right now, the number 4, they are 4-4 in their franchise in the playoffs. So what's going to break first? Is it going to be that? Are they going to get a win or a loss in that column? And there are also another thing with the number 4, I found all these connections, but there's only been, John Callaway marks the 4th person in their alumni list as a franchise, with Craig Boyd, Corey Poley, Will Rath, and now John Callaway. This team doesn't get a lot of turnover. And this is the first year in a super long time since they signed Jackson Crosley that they're only playing with 4 players. So 4 has to be their important number. How are they going to navigate that this season? And we mentioned, you always mention a player after this that's going to be kind of that X factor, and Sam Bakula is that player that we've chosen to kind of talk about. And my number for Sam Bakula, I have 400. You could say 0.400, but my big number for Sam Bakula is 0.400, because for the first time in his career last year, he hit under 400, which is kind of like one of those, lines you don't talk about. Like, you don't want to hit under 400 in this league because you're not going to be a very successful player. And it showed with the top 19 rankings.
It's like hitting 200.
Yes.
In the major
under
leagues.
200. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we've always attested it to, is the 400 and 200. Do they call it the Mendoza line? Is that what they call it in baseball?
That's what I call it.
So the 400 is obviously, you could call it the Bakula line maybe now, but under 400.
Hold on. It's actually the Edlo Donnan line.
Okay. So Sam Bakula batting under 400 did not help that team. All 3 other players batted over 400. Sam Bakula, because he batted under 400, he was also third or fourth, last or second to last on his team in many of the offensive metrics. So Sam Skibbe has to hit over 400 this next year to help his team out. Jackson Crosley proving he's a great hitter and is going to get another chance to show that success again, but Sam can't have a down year again. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, Sam, in the years that they've made their runs, obviously they're losing John Callaway, so this is even more important. But in the years that they had their really good runs, they had great pitching and they had really good hitting. And, your offense is only as good as the player that's performing the worst on your team. So if you have someone that's just consistently getting out, that's going to just shut down an inning right off the bat. So, yeah, Sam's a really good hitter. He's a really good player. People have down years, and he needs to bounce back. So I agree. It's a very important number.
379 is not going to do it.
That's right. So that takes us into our next team, Sam's team, Sam Skibbe's team. We are going to be talking about the Royals.
All right.
This one for me was the most difficult number to come up with for a team, and I'll tell you why. The Royals are the most successful team to have never won anything. You guys have two elite players. Most teams don't. Maybe have one. You guys have two elite players, but you've had this carousel of, third and fourth players just come in and out. And that makes it difficult. But you guys are always in the playoffs. You've got the pitching, you've got the hitters. I don't know if it's bad luck or too much pressure or whatever. So anyways, it's very difficult to come up with a number. But the number I came up with was 0. Okay. 0. I think the Royals
we're stuck at 0 championships forever.
No, I'm not that mean. No, the Royals need to have 0 expectations. I think every year that passes, you and your brother Gus want to win a championship together so bad. It would be cool for you guys. It would also be cool for the league. But you guys just need to let the pressure go. Let the stress go. Let the expectations go. Just go out and have a ton of fun. Not saying you don't, but go out and have fun. And in the moment, just let it go. No one needs to be the hero. The hero is just going to come when the moment arises. And you guys have had your heroic moments in national wiffle ball, like fast pitch. You guys have had your moments and so many other things. It's just you need one of those moments in the playoffs. And I think the way you get there is you just kind of let everything just kind of release. Yeah. So 0 is my number, which, could be a lot of other numbers, I guess. But that's the only number I can come up with, which I only know 0 is a number. 0 a number, technically.
It just so happens we have 0 championships, too. So hopefully getting out of 0 is the goal as well. But, yes.
Yes. And for me, you and Gus have been so consistent over the years. It'd be difficult to put a number on you guys they got to do this to win. It's they've already excelled in so many ways. So the number – the player that needs to be an X factor for this team has to be someone other than Gus and Sam. The player that I chose was Ty Butler, who did not play last year.
Correct.
And he is returning. And he's always been a really good player in this league. He's always been that third guy that's hey, sometimes he hit leadoff. I know sometimes he hit third, but he pitched sometimes. He's just kind of been that guy that every team needs. He's not necessarily the best player on the team, but he's a really good player. And for me, what the Royals need is someone that gets on base and doesn't end innings for the team. So the number for me is 550. I think Ty needs to hit well. I don't think Ty needs to hit a lot of home runs, but I think he needs to hit well and get on base. 550 would be a really good batting average. He's done that plenty of times before. I think he's hit over 700 before.
Yeah.
So for me, Royals, if they want to be successful, they need to have that third guy, and he needs to hit well.
You talk about hitting for average and hitting for power is such an interesting concept in this league. And you and I have had extensive conversations about Gus as well, and how Gus could win the MVP every single year if he just hit for power. But he always seems to have the best batting average in our league. He's 3 out of the past 4 years. It's been Gus that's had the batting title. He's been the national batting title winner, which is almost impossible to do with so many other leagues that are slow pitch, and he but his batting average is always so high, but his power numbers take a hit. And I agree. I think Ty needs to be that guy that gets on base and can have that mindset of however you can get on base, walk, single, double, whatever it is, and then let Gus do his thing with his power, and then we can be a little more successful. But I like the 0 expectations as well. 0 was an interesting number for the Royals as well, and we'll see. And this could be time running out. There's a lot of rumors floating around that, you know, there's gonna be a lot of big changes next year, so time's running out for this franchise.
Yes, and you know, another team that is looking for a championship. You could probably say the same number for this team, but Sam, tell us about the Brewers and what's the most important number for them.
You know, the Brewers are a team that have obviously been around from the beginning, and they're usually well known for being successful, but also more well known for their off the field, you know, shenanigans and being that franchise of the year of the past that they've been. But when it comes to playoffs, something just happens to this team. And last year, they found success, got to the championship, and got second place. That has a little bit to do with my number, but my number is 2 for them, because in the entire franchise era since the Brewers have been a part of, you know, Brewers have been a team, they have never won 2 playoff games. So every time they've won the wild card, they've lost the next round. Or last year, or any year that they've been in the semifinals, they've won that one semifinal game and then lost the championship. So winning 2 playoff games is obviously what their goal should be. You know, they've tasted a finals before, but they've never tasted that victory of that second win. They seem to crush it in their first win too. Let's see, you can go back to wild card scores. You can go back to the teams. Did they play you guys last year in the semifinal game? I think it was, wasn't it?
I think
and
so.
They beat you guys pretty handily. Like I think it was like 23-9 or something like that. Or maybe that was the regular season.
Yeah.
But they seem to beat their teams pretty well. And then it's like they use it all on their first win. And then their second win, they got nothing left. So I think 2 is the important number for the Brewers, making sure that they can get 2 playoff wins under their belt. So when you talk about a player for that team, you know, Peter Light's always going to be, you know, the captain of the Brewers, but Kyle Cornell is going to have a huge role on this team this year. And my number for him is 16. My number for Kyle Cornell is 16. He has never pitched over 16 innings in his franchise career. I think that is crazy, considering Kyle Cornell might be one of the most underrated pitchers still. He doesn't get his worth when it comes to the innings pitched. He had 11 innings pitched last year. That's it. And he has consistently been top 3 in ERA for this team. And he's one of our faster pitchers in our league, but he sits right around that 55 mark. And another little fun fact with 16, the last time Kyle was an all-star was 2016. So he needs to get back to that 2016 mindset, and he needs to be over 16 innings pitched. So what do you think about the Brewers, Spencer?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Kyle, every year he's always like a top 10 player. You know, he's always a guy that you that type of talent, those numbers you want on your team. So there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Really what this comes down to is the team's best players need to perform at their best level. And that's usually how a team's going to win. I mean, look at the Expos last year. It's like, okay, you could say all you want about the regular season, but when it mattered most, like their best players, Brett, clutch hit after clutch hit, Jimmy dominated pitching. It's like, you know, so yeah, I agree. I mean, Kyle getting back to 2016 form, I think if he was there for all the games this last year, I think he would have had even better numbers.
I agree. Yeah.
Probably would have pitched more. So, you know, I think the Brewers are close. They just, you know, it's hard. It's hard to win. You know, it's not easy. If it was easy, we'd see the same team win every year, and that's not the case. So, now speaking of the Expos, just brought them up. Let's talk about them. So the Expos, reigning SWBL champions, they did it in a way that we've never seen before. They did it with pitching, which is really cool to see, because for people that don't know, I'm sure everyone does, but we are a pretty hitter-friendly league. We put up a lot of offense. So for me, when I think of the Expos, like their goal obviously should be to repeat, defend their championship. And how do they do that? So for me, the Expos' most important number is the number 63. Now, that sounds like a very random number, very high number. What does 63 mean? I don't know. Let me tell you. 63 is the lowest amount of runs scored for a regular season schedule for a team that won a championship before the Expos.
Yeah,
so before last year, 63 runs was the lowest we had ever seen. And that was the Brewer. I'm sorry, that was season 15. Okay. Now, last year, the Expos scored 45 runs in total, and they still won. That's crazy to think about. That's 4.5 runs a game, talking about 6.3 runs a game. That's, 2 runs. That's a huge number. So I think in order for the Expos to return, be a championship contender, they still have to pitch very well. And not to say they couldn't do it the same way again. I just think it'd be very difficult to do it the same way again. So I think they need to hit that, get their offense up a little bit. So 63 runs for me. How do they do that? Well, I think Brett needs to hit a little better, but he is not the X factor that I have. My X factor is actually Jimmy Nelson. And you're probably going to think, oh, Jimmy pitched really well. How could he pitch better? I agree. I think it'd be very difficult. But what Jimmy could do better next year is on the other side of the ball. I think Jimmy needs to be a complete player that carries this team. I think that's the way this team gets to that more offensive prowess, just more balanced, really.
Yeah.
So the number for Jimmy Nelson's 15. I think if he goes from 10 home runs to 15 home runs, that can make a huge difference for this team. So what are your thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, leading the team with 10 home runs, Brett had 7, a little bit of an offensive down year. They definitely have the pitching to keep people close, but there were games, the games that the Expos lost, players are going to get a hold of you after a while. They're going to see you a little bit better. First couple innings might be a little rough for hitting teams against Jimmy, but then they're going to start getting used to the knuckleball, and teams can easily put up a 6 spot, in an inning. And then that's all they need to beat the Expos, who might only score, like you said, 4.5. So I think Jimmy, I agree, is the X factor still, because offense needs to be carried by somebody, and 10 home runs isn't going to do it when you're leading your team with just that many. So they definitely need to bolster that next year. And Jimmy's going to be a big part of this franchise for the future. Just signed a huge contract with Kevin and the Expos. So it's going to be exciting, and who knows, is Brett going to stick around with the Expos? Is Brett going to go somewhere else in the future? And if Brett does go somewhere else, then somebody's going to have to step up and be that clutch player on offense.
Right. And I do have a stat correction to make. 63 is the lowest amount of runs ever scored for a team that's made the playoffs. Wow. Not won the championship. So just to make the playoffs.
Until 45.
Until 45 last year. So even just if they can make the playoffs, just score a few more runs, they clearly can pitch.
Wow.
So anyways, let's move on to the very last team to talk about. My team, the Twins. Sam, this is up to you. Don't embarrass us too much. Tell us about the Twins.
Okay, I have a pretty long explanation, because I found so many connections between every single one of your players with this number, Spencer, and that is the number 5. Number 5. Ooh. Not only do you have 5 players on your team, same 5 players returning from last year. You guys won in 2016 and in 2018. 2016, formerly known as the Phillies, but obviously still the same franchise, just with a different team name. And the Phillies in 2016 won with Tyler Flackney, 2018 winning with Jimmy Cole. This is you guys are a team that has some great players, and how it's not still finding that championship, mentality is beyond us, because I think on paper, you guys are the best team. And many people would probably agree too, but 5 is my number. And here's why. 5 players. And you need to find the best places to make each role matter the most in your games. When do you pitch Will? When do you hit Will? Who plays the field? You have some great fielders on your team as well. Chris has 5 championships in his career, and he has 5 platinum hand awards in his career. He needs to get over that hump and get back to that prowess. He also has 4 national Fielder of the Year awards, and he needs to get to that 5th number. That's a cool connection as well. You and Chris both have 4 all-star selections, so getting to that 5th one means that your team's going to be successful as well. Edlo has 5 playoff wins in his career. He needs to break that for you guys to be successful as well. And Will has had 2 seasons in the past 4 that he's been 5-0. as a pitcher. And he's only gotten 3 wins the other 2 years. You know, last year went 3-2, but the year before that was 5-0, and even 2 years before that was 5-0 as well. So getting Will back to that 5 wins as a pitcher, because he's quote unquote your guy's ace. I know Edlow is coming up the ranks as, you know, your number 2, but, you know, Will getting back to 5 wins in the regular season and putting you guys in a position to get you that division win and also getting a high seed in the playoffs is only going to help. And then also Corey has, I thought this was a really cool stat as well. He's only played for 2 years, and I'm going to talk about Corey in a second because he's going to be our X factor for the Twins. But Corey has 4 national team selections in 2 years. That's like crazy. He's had a fielding one, he's had a rookie one, and he's had 2 hitting national team recognitions. So getting that 5th one means that he's continuing his success on some side of the ball. I'm going to talk about Corey because he's going to be our X factor with this too. And Corey's number is 53. Again, a little bit random of a number too, but the past 2 years, he has had 51 at-bats with the Royals. Last year had 52 at-bats with the Twins. And this year, his goal should be 53, just to get 53 or more, because what he has been doing with his offensive stats every single year is getting better. The only thing he took a slight step back for was RBIs. But to be honest, all that matters is who's on base for you when you're getting this. So it's not really his control. He's doing what he needs to do. His batting average went up 86 points. His home run total went up. His hit total went up. His singles went up. His doubles went up. Everything went up with more at bats. So just keep getting this guy who is continuing to prove himself. And between you and I, and who knows if he's even going to watch this, but I lovingly say this, but I still don't know how he can be so successful with having such an unorthodox swing. Now, some people would say that about me too. I have a very unorthodox swing, but he is showing so much success every single year. And I think getting Corey to 53 or more at bats is going to continue to show that he's going to be successful in this league for a long time. So again, Twins on paper have a lot to talk about with the number 5 and also with Corey with 53. So talk about your team for a little bit, Spencer.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, you know, you talk about the areas we can improve. I think pitching is just an area. I mean, we have Will, and then what? I know I got some backlash for picking Edlow last year in my top set of people to win the Cy Young, but
you knew
I think he finished, in my eyes, he finished like 4th or 5th place.
I think he was top 5, top 6, maybe, for sure.
He did good. The point is he did good. So maybe he's our number 2, but really the point of the matter is, like, we just got to get it all clicking at the same time. I did an analysis of all of our career playoff games, and we all hit like crap in the playoffs. All of us. Even the years we've won, we didn't hit great. We pitched good. So, you know, I think Corey's one of those people. I'm one of those people. Edlow, Chris hits a little better, of course. But, you know, it's a collective thing. We all got to be on the same page for an entire season.
And you'll be back for all 10 games this year.
That's right. And I do think Corey's, you know, it's hard to be good in your first year. It's even harder to be pretty good in your second year.
It is.
It's like it's difficult. He's done that 2 years now. I think a third year, just seeing more pitchers, you know, more times, just that process can only make him better. So I agree with you.
Yeah,
so
I think he is a bright spot as the future of our league as Corey. And I know there's a lot of rumors going around about changes going into season 20 for team makeup and free agency, and a lot of things are going to be happening. And if Corey doesn't find a home, if the Twins end up breaking up or something like that, it would be really sad, because this is a player that can continue to rise the ranks and get better and better each year. Not being a part of the top 18 countdown last year, but a little fun fact, he might be in the top 19 somewhere, who knows, but he can keep going up and up and up. So it's exciting to see what the Twins can do. And like I said, a great team on paper, just got to put it on the field now.
That's right. Yeah. And Sam, we've covered all the players. We've covered all the teams. Anyone out there listening, if you have a player or a team or a number or a horoscope that you want to tell us about, feel free to comment, share. Yeah. Let us know where we were wrong, where we were right. Let us know if you didn't get a Valentine's Day card yesterday. We want to hear from you. So anyways, that has been this edition of the Skibbe Wolfball podcast on this glorious, snowy, cold day here in St. Louis. We appreciate you listening and watching.
Thank you,
and
Nolan.
Join us. Thank you, Nolan Arenado.
Yep.
And join us next time when we podcast about something else, Wolfball related. Who knows what that will be. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Spencer.